turn it over to Major Nelson here, who will be moderating the rest of the forum. Thank you.
If I have any questions, I'll let you know. Hey everybody, my name's Larry Herb. You know me as Xbox Live's Major Nelson. Thank you for coming to the panel today. I know it's a beautiful day out. There's a lot cooler things you could be doing, but I really appreciate you being here. We got a great panel today for the next hour. We're going to be talking about podcasting and blogging, which have really changed the landscape of gaming for the past couple 3 years. We're going to talk about that. Also, we are going to be taking questions. You can see the microphone right up here in the center. I am recording this for my own podcast, so if you don't wish to be on my podcast, well, don't ask a question on the microphone. I'll take care of that afterwards. First of all, what I want to do is I want to go right down the alley here and start with Chris Grant, who's going to be shooting some photos. Apparently, so go ahead, Chris. And I'm going to shoot some photos as well as we go through here.
My name is Chris Grant. I'm the editor-in-chief of Joystiq.com, gaming blog.
Godfree with Gamertag Radio and also part of Gamercast Network.
I'm Ashley Jenkins. I am a community manager with Ubisoft, and I also work with the Frag.
My name is Zenke-Editor. I'm the editor of the Slashdot subsite, Slashdot Games.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, sorry. I was going to plug my personal blog.
Go ahead.
Blog Nation, guys, if you like master multiplayer games.
So, and you guys have anything else you want to plug? Because we got plenty of time to do that. What I want to do is I want to kick it off. I kind of teased that at the beginning of the conversation about how blogging and podcasting from a media, from a publisher, and from just a blogging community standpoint has really changed gaming versus perhaps any other industry at this point. Chris, we're going to start with you right here.
Well, I mean, it's kind of difficult to quantify. You know, I think a lot of the people in this room that are here for something like Penny Arcade probably realize that there's a lot of overlap between things like blogs and, community sites like Penny Arcade. The kind of older gaming press was kind of a monolithic structure that, had a lot more in common, or a lot more invested in the publisher and developer relationship than blogs do in the community aspect. So, as a blog where you're kind of, in a foxhole all day with, the gaming industry, it's a little more rapid fire than the press originally was. So it kind of satiates a demand for somebody that would fly out to Seattle to go to a video game convention, where you're kind of, obsessed with gaming and obsessed with the news. And blogs did it in a way that was kind of uniquely detached from other interests. Blogs were kind of an independent voice that wasn't afraid to illustrate a lot of the contradictions or BS in the gaming industry. And it was kind of a new voice for video games at least. And obviously blogs have had a huge impact in other mediums as well, and other kind of industries. So it's not unique to video games at all. But I think that's the reason blogs are on the cover of Newsweek and stuff, because they've had this effect in industries all over the world. And,
Danny, how has it changed for you? You run a pretty successful website and have a huge podcast and a huge following. How has it changed for you? I mean, clearly people are beating down your door to get some interviews, right?
I mean, when I started like around 2000, before even podcasting, podcasting didn't exist at that time. But I remember.
What did you call it?
Internet radio, I guess, a talk show or something. But at that time, I know I got invited to my first community event was the Xbox Unleashed. That was like before the original Xbox got released. And I sat down with Microsoft and also Nintendo a week later, and I told them about I had an internet radio show online, and they were like, "What is that?" And years later now, like a lot of community sites are getting invited to check out behind the scenes on how developing a game, or if we have feedback, we tell them right there at the event. So it's changing now. A lot of major sites now are doing podcasting. If you do research, there's more podcasts than radio. You look it up and stuff. So I mean, I've been going to a lot of events. I've been doing a lot of interviews every week, and we've been doing good, man. So
I want to go over to Ashley. Ashley, you work for Ubisoft. You work on the Frag dolls. How have what these guys, and Michael, we probably should have Michael before you, but we'll get Michael afterwards. How have what the coverage that they provided helped out Ubisoft?
Well, I feel like, especially from a community standpoint, one of the great things about blogs is it's less polished a lot of times than you'd find in a print magazine. It also comes faster. It's more kind of grassroots. So the coverage, and any time that a blog talks about, you know, our games, it feels very, very natural and very honest, and so it's much more community-oriented than some of what we had before, which was very, you know, kind of professional and maybe a little bit more mystifying, like it put the game industry at kind of a distance from the gamers, whereas I feel blogs have actually like pulled gamers into being much more involved with games both in development and everything going on around them.
Michael, do you find that to be true? And you've been covering games for a long time over there at Slashdot. You're huge. You know, you guys are like the original big blog, for lack of a better term, and games, huge, big part of that. Are you finding that to be true? Is it better to be unpolished?
I'm not sure it's better per se, but it definitely gives a sort of authentic quality to what you're reporting. A lot of what Slashdot is taking the words of other people and turning them into a sort of a more readable format. And I think that's kind of what blogs are in kind of the best sense, is taking bits of information and adding personality and good writing to it and putting that out to people and letting them comment on it. I think the big change for blogs like Joystiq with Slashdot and other really good blogs is kind of the rise of personality as an element of reporting. People get to know bloggers and they get to respect certain bloggers. And when you read coverage from certain bloggers, you know, okay, this is going to have this slant, but I agree with this blogger, so let's go for it.
So it's okay to be a fanboy?
In certain circumstances.
In certain circumstances, okay. Chris, you've been working with Joystiq for a while. I want to talk about where some of the relationships you have with some of the other developers and publishers, and in some cases platforms. So specifically, you know, I'm up here, I work for Microsoft, I'm very open about that. You know, fortunately we have Sony and Nintendo here. They have a different vibe when it comes to how they communicate with the community. I think everyone in the room will agree with that. What's your take on that? Are they getting better? What can we do as Microsoft to be better?
Well, I mean, this time last year, at PAX, different location, obviously, you know, we had the same conversation. The question was, you know, at that point, Microsoft was kind of unique in the way that they handled blogs and treated blogs, at least in terms of manufacturers. Some publishers were pretty good as well. And the question was, why don't Sony and Nintendo see the benefit of dealing with blogs on a professional level? And happy to report that since that time, Sony has had an epiphany of sorts, let's say. And but they've been, I think, very good about treating blogs not only with respect in terms of, let's say, you know, something simply metric like numbers. You know, we get traffic, you'll deal with other sites that are not blogs just because of their format. So it was kind of frustrating to have a certain size readership that you want to deliver compelling content to that you're unable to because of the way that you present it. So that's changed with Sony. Nintendo hasn't really changed much. I mean, Nintendo has a kind of static relationship that they, you know, I think they also have changed a lot in the fact that they're so successful now that I don't think they see blogs as a necessary ends anymore. They don't feel like they need the sponsorship or support of a site in order to succeed. You know, Nintendo fan sites, perfect case in point. There's 1,000 of them and they're Nintendo fans. You know, they're interested in getting the Nintendo fans' mom to buy their console now. So I don't think we've seen a decrease in Nintendo. We just haven't seen the market increase that we've seen from Sony and from myriad publishers. I mean, a lot of the publishers are really starting to get on board. Microsoft has, you know, obviously been a kind of static presence this whole time, where they've been targeting blogs specifically in a very concentrated and direct way for years. So obviously sites like Joystiq and Slashdot and much smaller blogs, you know, podcasts, have all in a way benefited from that. I think Microsoft's benefited from the coverage, and it's kind of like a give and take. You know, I think Sony maybe unfairly blamed blogs for a lot of their missteps and thought that the blogs were, you know, almost benefiting at their expense and not really taking ownership of their failures to that point. But now that Sony has something to show off and they have some successes and they're finding that they're getting a very receptive audience in the blogosphere, they realize, I think, that it's not unfair. You know, they were being called out for failures, and something that blogs did, it might have been a little cruel, it might have been, you know, there's millions of blogs, it might have seemed excessive to them, but you know, I think that they weren't upset when all those same blogs were screaming, yelling about how great Little Big Planet was. So.
One of the things that I can just say, working for Microsoft, obviously I can't speak for Sony or Nintendo. We have the Gamerscore blog guys here somewhere out there.
Gamerscore.
The Gamerscore blog guys, Tony and Sarah and John and Chris. And they do that. They provide a very concentrated effort. And we speak every week about what the vibe in the community. I mean, we have lengthy discussions. What we like to look at is blogs. Everybody at this table and everybody in this room really keeps us honest. And that's what we really like about it, is that you guys and girls and the bloggers and the podcasters really keep us honest and make us talk about maybe things that probably in normal, maybe in a normal day, perhaps, I don't know, probably wouldn't be addressed as forefront as we like to do, to your point. And so that's why it's interesting you say that about Sony, because you're right, you gotta live by the blogs and frankly you have to die by them. They can be your friends or they can be, I don't want to say enemies, but they can also come after you. And that's the way it works. So, go ahead.
Well, for me, what's the question?
We're talking about how the other publishers, Danny's having a chat.
Yeah, this is like my first time. No, but I know since day one, Microsoft always been stepping up to us about what they could help us in any way for us to take podcasting to another level. I mean, recently, yesterday for the first time, Microsoft gave us a chance to put our logos from our, we have a network called Gamercast Network.
Yep.
And for the first time, we have our logos now on Xbox Live Marketplace. I mean, that never happened before.
So just to let everyone know what Danny's talking about, you can go home and you can download, there's a free PAX, I guess it's a PAX pack of all these different the gamer network.
It's free, so I mean, if we get community support, right there we getting our voice out there saying Microsoft that, we have a strong community out there, and anybody out there that want to support and download it, that'll be cool. So I mean, this is going to open the doors for other community sites out there too. So,
Ashley?
Do you want me to address how Ubisoft is headed?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I know that from a publisher standpoint, we do have a love-hate relationship with the blogs, because of course, we want to see the good things, and we don't want to see the bad things. But also, it's true. It does keep us honest. If we do something that is maybe not the best decision we could make, then we're going to get called out on it. And so that does put some pressure on us, and it's a good kind of pressure to make sure that we make the right decisions and that we're doing things that the gamers and community approve of, because that's the key influencers who are going to make the internet go crazy if we do something bad. So it does mean that in a way we as a publisher do become more answerable directly to the gamers, which is a good thing in my opinion.
Well, from my perspective, we don't really look for more of anything really from any of the big three folks. It's whatever news comes along. I am the alpha and the omega of Slashdot games, so I can only post so much every day. But really, I think the honesty element that we've all touched on is the most interesting, entertaining thing about blogging as a format for me. Being able to have less than 24-hour turnaround on news, the speed that Graham was talking about, just being able to is that it's just a wonderful thing. It's something that I know when I was growing up in the ye old Nintendo days, when I was very young, it was something I would enjoy a lot. So.
We're going to start at the other end and come back this way this time. I want to talk, in front of us are sitting 100, 200 people. What are some tips that you can give them for their blogs and their podcasts to really make a difference? And how do they, we all had to get started somehow. I remember the very first podcast I did was all of, I think, like 12 minutes. Now they're like 2 hours. And I'm sure we all have strange stories in the back of our minds of how we got started. But what kind of tips can you give the audience here and people listening when they download my podcast, how to get started? Start the other.
Consistency, I think, is one thing that I really think is a good word to keep in mind when you're doing blogging. Is if you're gonna blog and you're gonna blog 3 times a week, then blog 3 times a week. If you're gonna blog once a day, do that.
What do you do when you don't have something to talk about? Because sometimes there's low, I mean, you're not gonna make stuff up like a taco.
Oh,
CJ, you should have been here, all right?
Keep that guy that's not in the room. Oh. Well, it's not so much making stuff up as there's always stuff out there. I mean, even if it's just, people talking about things in forums, there's always something you can talk about that's not rumor. It's not pure rumor. You can take conversations that gamers are having and turn it into a discussion based in fact, and have that be what you want to put out there on your blog. So even if there's not a specific story that you want to talk about during the day, I would encourage people to always keep to a schedule if you can. And when there's a hole in that schedule as far as something like really meaty, go out there and look for it, because that's what makes blogs really interesting, is the passion of the posters.
Yeah, just before we get to you, actually, I noticed that I always have 2 or 3 things in my drafts folder which I want to talk about, and sometimes I don't get to because frankly I'm posting on marketplace garbage, which will go away soon. But it's just that. It's just about there's certain things you want to talk about. In my case, I tend to drift a little bit and talk about technology and whatnot, but it's just having those 2 or 3 things in the back of your mind that are always interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Number one, consistency is a big thing. As someone who, I don't, blog professionally, but as someone who does read blogs, if the site's never updated, or if it's updated consistently, I'll stop going there. And the other thing is to have a personality. I could read white papers all day long, and frankly, I can fall asleep, but if I'm gonna do something that's entertaining, I want a personality. I want to feel like I'm reading someone's real thoughts.
You want to be entertained.
I want entertain me, yes.
And as for a podcast, be active. For me, I'm not like you guys in the daily news and stuff. But for us, we involved with the community. So I rather, if there's nothing going on, I'll get community members from different sites get together and be part of the podcast and have roundtables and
So that's your version of what I have in my drafts folder. You've always got kind of the
You got to do that more.
Right.
We listen to you. We have a lot of you have a lot of fans. So.
Right.
Why not invite other sites to your show? You invited us
right.
During E3 and stuff.
Yeah. I'll tell you, to your point, and I love having other people on my show. I've had, I think, everybody here on this. Nope. All right, we gotta get Slashdot
next week.
But it's just one of those things where my podcast is kind of what I do outside of my regular jobs. It's just one of those things where you're absolutely right, and I will take your challenge.
There you go.
I will take your challenge.
Yes.
I would, reinforce consistency, but also quality. It's not a problem I think most professional blogs have, but you read a lot of smaller blogs, and if I start reading a blog and it's full of spelling errors and it's sloppy and it's generally poorly written, I'll stop reading. And I just don't have enough time in my day to work through somebody's spelling errors. It just reinforces a sense of laziness or lack of care on the part of the author. And blogging is writing. It's a writing job, whether or not you're getting paid for it or not. But if you're going to spend your time writing, you should at least take pride in the product you produce.
Yep.
So a lot of bloggers tend to kind of treat it almost like a text message. It's a stream of consciousness, and I would encourage those people to, proofread, basically. Use full words, remember your punctuation. And it sounds crazy, but reading a couple hundred blogs a day, you see it over and over and over again. It really does distract from any good content that might otherwise be on there.
Have you guys seen, how are you working with mainstream media? And Chris, we'll start with you. In terms of, you've got the New York Times. We just came back from, we're just off of a month and a half ago coming from E3, where you're sitting in a room with maybe the guys from Time Magazine and so forth. How's the traditional media viewing guys when you bump into them out in the, at events?
Well, that role's changed a lot, even in the past year. Look at, perfect example, take Newsweek. Mm-hmm. Newsweek, big mainstream outlet, their tech editor, Guy Kroll, covered games for Newsweek magazine, maybe every other week, maybe a couple hundred words, not a lot of coverage. He started a blog, and because of the scale of Newsweek and the size, publishers are willing to give him tons of interviews because of his connections and because of his professionalism. And his blog is producing amazing content, right? And so it's a blog, but it's also got the backing of a mainstream magazine.
Is that the future? Do you think that hybrid is the future?
No, I don't think it's the future in any. I think the future is way greater than that. The future is going to be an enormous hodgepodge of everything. You know, it's the internet, it's a cacophony of voices. You know, you're not going to be able to single anything out and say that that's the way things are going. I think we've already reached a balkanization of media on the internet, and that's only going to get more and more balkanized as the tools become easier for people to adopt. But you look at an outlet like Newsweek, or you look at the role of sites like Joystiq in the process. And you know, I talk to a lot of people that write for major newspapers or magazines, or they'll contact me to get comments for stories. And a lot of times, sites like Joystiq will start the ball rolling, and a week and a half later, you'll read about it in the New York Times. You know, it takes a little while to get there, but you know, Joystiq could write about the Red Ring of Death for 6 months before it hits a mainstream, you know, audience. So there's a certain symbiotic and cooperative aspect to the way that mainstream media deals with blogs. I think a lot of them are also dealing with it in a way of, you know, jumping in the pool. Playing along.
Well, I have a problem with a lot of major sites. They sometimes take advantage of like the smaller sites and would take news that have been posted, and they don't give credit to those that have been, you know, giving it out there to the community. So, I mean, Joystiq always been giving like credit to us or whoever been giving them tips and stuff. So I mean,
You want to give any names? I'm sure they want to know.
Kotaku, but I'm just saying, like, it bothers me. I mean, there's a lot of sites that are getting paid and we're not. We're doing it out of, you know, out of love and, you know, for fun, but at least give credit for us. You know, we need traffic, at least for our news to get out there. You know?
I think one of the things that blogs do also is that you have that, you know, the conversation, if you want to call it that, but you know, you can follow stories around, you know, 30 links deep, I know where it started from, but, you know.
Well, not my story, though. I said that much.
We run via tags, you know, we try and give credit wherever we found it first. If there's a source, we like to always link directly to the source. If that source is a press release, we'll link to that. If the source is another blog, forum, a mainstream newspaper article, whatever it is. But there tends to be almost an overemphasis, almost an obsession on blogs with citation, you know, illustrating where it came from and pointing to sources. And it's something that you don't necessarily see in the mainstream newspaper where first-hand reporting is really praised. So yeah, you'll see a lot of your leads duplicated on other sites without credit. And it's something that Joystiq, I mean, not only can I point to 150 sites that just scrape our RSS content and put ads on it with a new URL, so whatever, but you know, mainstream sites, yeah, we see our stories on them all the time with no credit 6 hours later, but you know, it used to be worth getting upset about, and you know, it doesn't really bother me anymore.